Welcome back, nerds. Fino here. I've gone and ranked every servant, and with that information, I was able to take an average of each banner's power level. All the older servants I covered on the NA GSSR tier list, so give that a look if you're curious about those. With that out of the way, let's rock. At the very bottom of the barrel, we have 3 banners with 2.0 average scores. Splitting hairs, I'd say the worst of these is the Ilya banner, which has her as the only notable get. The rest of the banner is filled with weak and outdated attackers in desperate need of buffs. The Alter Ego Kiara banner has her and Hokusai as the draws, but there's an additional D tier in the mix to pull down the average. The common thing between the Hokusai and Ilya banners is that the payoff is really low for the risk you take, capping out at B tier. Our next banner on the other hand has a big payoff, but an even bigger risk. It's the Constantine the 11th banner, but he's not the actual draw. Constantine is in the running to be the single worst limited 5-star in the game, which is pretty impressive considering his competition for the title is a bunch of year 1 clunkers. He's this bizarre defensive buster rider that plays at being a support, but has an atrocious noble phantasm that doesn't really accomplish anything besides keeping himself alive for a turn. No, the real pull is Ptolemy. He's like Melusine in reverse, an archer that turns from a single target buster to AoE arts. He hits quite hard as well, and once you get past his learning curve, he's quite a potent option to have in your roster. Strong A tier material. But your odds are you win the 1 in 3 for Ptolemy or get screwed with a D tier servant, so it's extremely risky, and here's the fucked up part. There's another Ptolemy banner because these are organized in part by NP type. Because Ptolemy fills 2 different card types, he gets to double dip. In other words, there's no reason to roll on this banner unless you have a sick fascination with Sigurd, so it's a banner made for Brynhild and no one else. Next up, we have the Gilgamesh banner. He's a strong AoE buster archer, and Ivan's not too shabby either, but the quality of the other options is quite low, dragging down the banner's average score to 2.2. The Ruler Moriarty banner has him and Muramasa. I already talked about the latter in the NA video, but the younger Moriarty is an AoE arts ruler who gets the job done in terms of looping but not much else. Doesn't really bring anything special to the table. His damage isn't anything to write home about, and if you're in the market for a looping generalist, you're much better off fishing for Summer Ibuki or Melusine. Ruler Moriarty is solidly B tier, and this banner averages out to a 2.67. Now we come to another trio of banners, this time with scores of 2.75. The Ibuki Romulus banner has them as good buster loopers, the Kama banner features her and Taira no Kagekiyo as strong single target quick servants, and the Himiko banner features herself as the main draw, being an immortal team enabler. Musashi ain't too shabby, but you may have noticed there's also a new servant on here. Super Bunyan. She's an alter ego that gains stacks of a unique buff when she attacks or is hit, and this affects her NP damage, but she really seems balanced around needing multiple stacks to do her job well. Without them, she only has a modest advantage over someone like the Mecha Ellies, and that's pretty damn unflattering. And it's not like the rest of her skill set is anything special either. C tier. The BB banner is heavily weighted towards B tier servants, with Samuramis there to drop the average down. The Okita Alter banner ended up with the same score at 2.8, but has better potential upside with her and Doman at the cost of having Jacques de Molay as a much worse low roll. 4 banners scored at 3.0 average, each having a big spread across the quality spectrum. The Meltreless banner has her and MHX Alter as the high end, while the Ereshkigal banner focuses on her and Ishtar. The other 2 feature new servants. The Charlemagne banner includes him and Takasugi Shinsaku, who you may recognize from Ryoma's Narrow Escape. Charlemagne is a solid A tier AoE quicksaber, and he acts as a more mechanically awkward side grade to Summer Okita Alter. Takasugi on the other hand ends up in C tier as an AoE quick archer with an extremely generic beatstick kit. Doman makes another appearance here, helping to bring the average up. The last of the 3.0 banners features Kagekiyo, Astolfo, and Wangina, a single target quick foreigner. I ended up putting her lower in the stream VOD, but after looking at her numbers, I think B tier is a more fair placement. She has this weird buff stack mechanic much like Super Bunyan, but the defensive condition is attached to allies with a specific attribute being hit. The problem with this? It's the human attribute. Scotties have an attribute, so realistically you won't be getting that second source of stacks. Unlike Super Bunyan though, Wangina's self-contained damage is quite high even without stacks, so that helps to pull her up in the rankings. Otherwise, Taira no Kagekiyo is the primary draw here. The Kintoki and First Asan banner has a pair of good A-tier buster attackers, but it landed on a score of 3.25, mostly weighed down by Hijikata. 3 banners ended on a score of 3.5. The Space Ishtar / Summer Kama banner has them as the quality anchor, and they're joined by one of the newer servants, Kyokutei Bakin. She's an arts rider that plays at being a supportive attacker with a targeted buff and a little spread charge attached to her battery. She's okay, but I look at her kit and see a bunch of half measures that stop her from going any higher than B tier. The second of the 3.5s is the Bazette banner. Bazette herself has a very unusual counter mechanic where Noble Phantasm makes her taunt up and assume a stance. Every time she's hit during that turn, she'll hit back. And with investment, she can absolutely mess people up. She can't break bars with her counters, but she can get kills, which lets her potentially clear fights faster than you're supposed to be able to. She's not a strictly necessary character for your account, but she's good at what she does if you're willing to explore her playstyle. A tier. I have some more good news for this banner. They've finally let Medusa be good! Saber Medusa is a powerful single-target attacker with a very nice multi-hit invuln/debuff immunity combo, and her damage spikes up against human attribute enemies. Wangina also makes another appearance here, so if you're interested in her, this is the better place to look. The last 3.5 banner features 4 of the newer servants. Ruler Scotty is an EX tier quick enabler. She's like Caster Scotty with better quality of life buffs, but no defensive noble phantasm. She can potentially attack as well, which makes duplicate copies less of a nuisance. Because she fills the same role as Caster Scotty, you can run quick teams in advanced quests, which prevent you from using friend supports. And for fights that do let you use friend supports, you can just run 2 Scotties yourself and pull an NP5 quick attacker from one of your friends. It's crazy how valuable Ruler Scotty is. Britomart is, for most intents and purposes, a power-crept Bradamante. She's a Lancer, but her Noble Phantasm lets her pick fights with riders too. A B-tier option. Huiyan Zhou, aka the Assassin of Mao Liang, is an AoE quick assassin, and her main draw is multi-turn buff removal resistance. Quite a solid trick that puts her in B tier. I ranked send no Rikyu a tier lower on stream, but honestly, she's like B tier. Her regular skills aren't anything special, but her Noble Phantasm both NP seals and has anti-human attribute damage, so she can hit hard within that niche. Next up with a 3.67 average is the Tezcat Lipoka banner. Tezcat himself is an AoE arts assassin with a lot of powerful tools. A snowballing NP damage effect, anti-divine damage, a 50% personal battery that also acts as a 30% spread charge for his teammates, and a double attack buff that he can trigger himself. Nutty stuff. A tier. We've already established Ptolemy as another powerhouse, so that just leaves Kirei Kotomine aka Rasputin. He's a bit of an oddball, an arts alter ego with a recurring chance-based guts attached to his taunt. His Noble Phantasm has this curse/burn combo with a restrictive instant kill bonus that only works against good aligned enemies. Kirei has his power budget in a lot of weird places, and while he's not bad per se, the lack of focus puts him in B tier. The Summer Musashi banner rocks a 3.75 average with a bunch of A tier servants and Murasaki. No duds on this one, but there's room to aim higher. Now we come to a quartet of 4.0 average banners. The Squirturia package comes with 4 A tier attackers and utility picks, many of which are good going from NP0 to NP1. But I'm actually going to put it below our next option, the Ash the Savior banner. Ash, Arquaid, Tiamat, and Kukulkan are all very potent AoE buster attackers, and I put every last one of them in A tier. All of them are Quaid compatible and each has a nasty trick. Arquaid has a 100% battery, which lets her run Black Grail with impunity. Tiamat has a party heal, charge, and NP damage combo on a skill with a 2-turn cooldown, meaning with Quaid's help, she can spam it consistently over the course of a run or repeatedly on a single turn to spike up her damage as needed. Kukulkan can convert stars into additional effects for her skills, and she has a great degree of control over which effects proc, making her extremely flexible and dangerous for an AoE foreigner. Finally, Ash the Savior has the amazing power to crash her game with an onslaught of particle effects. But to get to that point, she has a 50% battery for herself, and another, separate 50% battery for her entire team, including herself, with the catch that it starts on cooldown and has a very long cooldown. But a Noble Phantasm reduces that skill's cooldown. A 50% party battery on an attacker is absolutely insane, and once you figure out how to meet her conditions, she opens up all sorts of nasty setups. This is a banner filled with servants that benefit from additional NP copies, and given that so many of these are characters you'd want to roll for anyway, there's a strong chance you can get good value out of it. Next is the Summer Castoria banner. She herself is an EX tier single target berserker that not only has a powerful set of normal skills, but her Noble Phantasm also applies a stack of anti-enforcement defense to your entire frontline. You can't abuse it to the same extent as regular Castoria since it isn't tied to overcharge, but the fact that you just get this effect for playing normally is absolutely nuts. Throw in anti-threat to humanity, chaotic and divine effects, and you have yourself a top tier powerhouse. Melusine is here as well, always a treat. Uesugi Kenshin, aka Ruler Kagetora, is a single-target arts attacker who preemptively purges buffs on her Noble Phantasm, which also comes with anti-human attribute damage. With a 50% battery, she's only really impeded by enemies with box buffs, which can't be purged. The only servant here below A tier are the Trunk Sisters, who have a great deal of role overlap with the Dioscuri. They're alright, but nothing special. Single-target art Saber is all. B tier. The last of the 4.0 banners, and the best one in my estimation, is the Summer Ibuki banner. She's another EX tier berserker, but unlike Summer Castoria, she's an AoE arts berserker. She power creeps Musashi as a generalist farmer with an NP gain buff and 50% battery, but she also has a nicer crit package, anti-earth attribute modifier, and a preemptive defensive buff purge. She can handle just about anything aside from boxed invulnerability effects. And much like Ibuki usurps Musashi, Durga usurps Summer Jean in the arts archer role. She's got higher damage, and she turns blue. The hot kind of blue. Summer Melusine is here as well, and she's a high-end farming arts ruler. Among other things, she packs an 80% battery, snowballing attack buff, and anti-earth damage. The only blemish on this banner is the B-tier Popus Johanna. She's not even bad necessarily, packing a combination of buff block, a battery, and NP regeneration. She can make her mark against evil and human attribute enemies, but when you get her instead of ruler Melusine, it'll sting. Now we move up to a 4.25 average. Every banner past this point has at least one EX tier servant in it, but the question is how much risk are you willing to endure to get them? Merlin's banner has him as the main draw, but Sherlock is the notable side prize. Then you have the self-buffing Super Orion and Shi Huangdi. Everyone aside from Merlin sits in A tier, so you get a pretty good deal regardless. But if you want to be a bit more ambitious, consider the Oberon banner. Our boy Amogus is the obvious EX tier, but his A-rank companions include Romulus Quirinus and Arjuna Alter, both being Buster Loopers who'd very much appreciate his assistance. There's also Takeda Shingen, another A-rank. Shingen has his own cooldown reduction effect, meaning you can loop with a K-Scope, 2 Koyans, and any mystic code you want. You could even plug Oberon if you wanted to, though you'd be doing it for damage rather than his charge. The last of the 4.25s is the Koyanskaya banner. It features Koyan Light as an EX tier Buster enabler, Morgan as an EX tier attacker / immortal team enabler, and the A tier Melusine doing the usual Melico business. That second EX, though, is counterbalanced by Koyanskaya of Darkness. She's a B tier foreigner with a bunch of her power budget eaten up by flavor skills. Animal characteristic support and an ailment debuff package stand out as things that don't really lend themselves to a coherent strategy. At the end of the day, she's still a Buster Looper, but she's definitely the weak link in this group. This banner's a case of bigger risk for a bigger reward. Our penultimate stop rocks a 4.3 average with Lady Avalon as the main draw. She's an EX tier support that is essentially Merlin but for art. I'd generally consider her the better option for Immortal Team business, and her Pretender class lets her push damage against Knight classes and Alter Egos better than Caster Merlin. Strangely enough, she's also unaffected by Oberon's anti-Merlin passive despite, being Fate prototypes Merlin. Perrin is backed up by Van Gogh and Miss Crane, who are both high A-tier servants. And now we come to the end of the road, Castoria's banner. They've upped the ante here with 3 EX tier supports, Castoria, Scotty, and Reynes. The downside though is Shi Huangdi. Always there to haunt your high-end banners, huh? But as I discussed in the NA video, he's still an A-tier self-buffing attacker, so the average score of this banner goes up to an astonishing 4.75. If you don't have any of the 3 supports, it's your best option by a mile. And if you don't have Castoria but own other members, you really should just risk it and pull this banner anyway. People who already have the meta supports can play around with fun attackers like Summer Ibuki and Summer Castoria, but the original Castoria is the foundation that makes a lot of their shenanigans possible. So treat her like the door boss of account building and get your first copy when you can. Thanks for watching. Like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more, and come on to my twitch.tv/Finotaisen where I stream every weekend, 3 p.m. Pacific time, Friday through Sunday. I post the schedule here on the community tab, but you can also get it on Twitter or Discord if that's more your speed. Till next time.